Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and give the thumbs up, a like as well. That helps us get the video out to a wider audience. It's much appreciated. I'm Andrew Musgrove, and today's video is all about James Maddison and how Newcastle United have missed out on him. He's heading to Spurs. In fact, by the time you watch this video, he may well already be confirmed as a Tottenham Hotspur player. It's a big blow for Newcastle United. Let's make no bones about it. They really liked James Maddison. Eddie Howe was a big fan. They'd scouted him extensively and then concluded he would be an upgrade on what they've got already at the club. And there's no getting away from it. He would have been. He scores goals. He sets goals up. He's good at dead balls. He's in the England setup. And his best years are ahead of him. He would have been a fantastic signing. But as it is, Spurs have got ahead and secured it. £40 million is the reported price tag, which I think the Sun will seem like a pretty good deal for Tottenham Hotspur. You know, Newcastle had a bid of the same value put in previous windows and were told they'd have to pay a bit more. Fully believe Newcastle were told that at the end of the season just gone, when James Maddison was a priority for them. And I don't think we can get away from that. James Maddison, for me, was top of the list. The position he plays in, not so much, but he was top of the list. And Newcastle United were looking to pay 55, 60 million. But when it became clear Newcastle were not going to be messed around, when it became clear Newcastle were not going to waste their own time in the pursuit for James Maddison, and then their interest cooled, that played into Spurs' hands because Leicester couldn't ignite a bidding war because there was no other team in for Maddison. So it's no surprise maybe to see the price tag drop to 40 million. I think Spurs will be very happy to pay that and will look like they've shaved maybe 15, 20 million off the price tag. Also, Spurs were handed a massive advantage with the fact that Maddison preferred to move to London and not to Tyneside. And when you are presented with that issue from a Newcastle point of view, there's very little you can do. You can't persuade, really, a player who's got his heart set on a move to a certain city. You can't persuade him otherwise. You know, we know what a great place it is to work and live here, but it very much seems like James Maddison desired a move to the capital. He's got it. That played into Spurs' hand, and it's no surprise to see the speed of which this deal has been completed. It's a shame he would have added to this squad, but Newcastle United won't be feeling sorry for themselves. They will have already moved on. We've seen it in previous windows when they haven't got their number one target, i.e. Hugo Ekitike, Sven Botman. They move on. They look elsewhere. They've already done the research on other players. You know, they don't stand still. And that's really important, really refreshing to see that this transfer team at Newcastle United are proactive, not reactive, and they would have had contingency plans in place for every eventuality. And I'm sure in the coming weeks we will see attention turn elsewhere, and they'll be quick to get other deals done. It's interesting, isn't it, on James Maddison, because not everybody wanted them. There were a few people who questioned his application, his attitude, and where he fits into this Newcastle United side. And it is very interesting because formation-wise, you look at where he potentially would have fitted in, and it's hard to say exactly where, because the way Newcastle play, they've got that midfield three. He's not going to be a number 6. Could he be a number 8? Well, yeah, potentially. Could he go out on the wings again? Potentially. But he's a number 10. That's where he's best. That's where you get the most out of him as an attacking midfielder, that number 10 role. And Newcastle don't play with a number 10. So to get the best out of him, would you have to have ripped up the formation that's worked so well for Eddie Howe and Newcastle? And they've got Champions League football, for goodness sake. You wouldn't rip up the formation. Don't fix something that isn't broken. And that would have, I think, presented Newcastle with an interesting dilemma had they signed James Maddison, a big money signing. And yet you're going to have to force him into a position where you don't get the best out of him, or you change a formation which has worked so well. So with him going to Spurs, of course, that debate ends, and it's probably welcomed, I think, by some who were left scratching their heads. His attitude had been questioned by some, his application. Did he have it in him to be part of a high-pressing side like Newcastle United are? Because that's what makes Newcastle United so good. For me, one of the best, if not the best, high-pressing side in the Premier League. Every player puts their all into it. You know, they've got fitness, they've got stamina. Every player knows exactly what they've got to do and they stick to it. James Maddison isn't that sort of player for me, and that would have been another interesting dilemma Newcastle would have had to face, and why not everybody wanted James Maddison. But that being said, let's not pretend that Newcastle went in for him. And it's interesting, isn't it, when clubs miss out on their top targets. Fans suddenly go from describing a top target as a fantastic player, as someone who is an upgrade, as someone who will be a statement signing, as someone who is a brilliant player, to someone who's not that good, not that mediocre. Did Newcastle United really want him? Newcastle wanted him, but this is just football. He's not a bad player. He's a brilliant player. He would have been a brilliant signing for Newcastle, but as it is, he's gone elsewhere, and Newcastle United move on. It's going to be interesting, though. Is it a gamble from James Maddison? No Champions League football. For me, Spurs are still a bit of a mess. The new manager not proven in the Premier League is a bit of a gamble to point him, perhaps. Obviously, he did wonders at Celtic, but it's a different kettle of fish in the Premier League. And also, I just think there's a lot of fires to put out at Tottenham before they get anywhere near Newcastle's level. It's not a unified dressing room. Everything that went on last season, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, he's been sold something. The wages, 170,000, 175,000. Newcastle, we're never going to pay that. So the wages probably help, but it's going to be interesting to see that the football project is being sold. And of course, Harry Kane. Harry Kane could be on his way to Bayern Munich. He's only got a year left on his contract. Bayern have put in a couple of bids for him. Could James Maddison arrive and the man who would be on the end of his crosses leave? You'd be wanting some assurances, wouldn't you, if you were James Maddison? So, look, it's a good move for him. He's got the move he wants, going to a decent club, but I think there's a lot to sort out, and it's not going to be one of those hit the ground running kind of moves. I think Spurs are still going to struggle next season. But hey, this is a Newcastle United channel. We'll move on from James Maddison because it's not about James Maddison anymore. It's about who Newcastle United turn to next. And, Dominic Szoboszlai is probably the main one. Again, they've watched him. They like him. He's got a release clause that reportedly ends on the 1st of July, around about 60 million. Reports that Liverpool have now looked at him, have held talks with his representative. So Newcastle are going to have competition on that side of things. He would probably be the top pick, I think, for most. But there'll be other names Newcastle are looking at, other names you could throw into the fold. Still, Moussa Diaby is one that's still been linked and looked at. They've scouted him, they've liked them again. There's going to be plenty of names floating around. And I think what we'll see, with the fact that James Maddison's gone to Spurs, I think we'll see the reaction to that, the reaction of the transfer team. It'll reaffirm the ambition of the owners, and it'll reaffirm, as I said earlier in the show, that they're proactive, not reactive. They will already have something in their mind, and it'll reaffirm how well organized they are and how much they mean business this window. And, yes, okay, Spurs have beaten Newcastle at this one, but what's the bigger picture? Some will say, well, it shows Newcastle, with all the money they've got to spend in Champions League football, still isn't a big enough draw. Okay, that's your opinion. I respectively disagree. As I mentioned, Maddison wanted to move to London above anything else, so he was always likely to end up there. Newcastle will persuade big names to head to Tyneside this summer. They will get some quality players in. Sandro Tonali is one of them, AC Milan midfielder. That deal is expected to be confirmed after Tonali leaves in the one Euro Championships. He's captain Italy there at the moment in Romania/Georgia, I think it is. So once that ends, he's expected to head to Tyneside and confirm the deal. Nothing to worry about. He just wants his focus to be on that. Anthony Gordon's there as well with England. That's a big signing. That's a huge signing, one that Newcastle, I don't think, really expected to be able to do, but they've done it. That shows they mean business. Of course, then you look at how much that's cost them, the wages, etc., and that'll play into where Newcastle United go next. But rest assured, they will have been fully prepared not to have got James Maddison, and they will have other priorities to hit up. A left back, obviously Tino Livramento, right back, is also on the radar as well. So don't fear. Yes, Maddison goes, but Newcastle won't be losing sleep over it. They won't be feeling sorry for themselves. They'll be on to the next target. And it's just very exciting to be able to say that Newcastle United are prepared for everything. Yes, they are. Refreshing to say that, isn't it? Because of the dark old days where they were very reactive and not proactive. But hey, Newcastle United have new Newcastle United today. It's exciting. This is the transfer market. Hey, Newcastle United signing big name players. Fantastic to see. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I've been Andrew Musgrove. Remember to hit that subscribe button and tap that thumbs up button as well. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk for all the latest Newcastle United news.